Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Quandt. I am the Director of Human Services at McKenzie Health System. And I'm here today to introduce Mary Martin, who is a master gardener. And today she will be showing us how to start seeds in milk cartons.
And it's also called, I want to thank you guys for having me again this year. It's also called sowing seeds in a snowbank. So some of the seeds we can actually start way back in January when everybody starts getting the itch of I want to have my little paws in the soil, then we can. So why do winter seed sowing? One thing, it's fun. Two, you can actually recycle things, and I'm going to show you today some of the things like little Dixie cups like this. This can become a pot, so we can plant things in that. Peat pots we might use. A simple thing like a toilet paper roll. I will show you today how to turn this into a pot to be able to use to plant some plants in. So it's a fun project to do. Kids love it, by the way. I did it back in February at the library, and the kids were there, and they had a ball with it. So it's very easy to get started. The main thing we're going to have is a milk jug. Now you have to have this type of a milk jug where you can kind of see through it. The newer ones that are out there that are the white, those do not work. You know, you don't want those. The other things we're going to have is we have a sharp knife. We've got some markers. We have some craft sticks. I've got little tiny pieces of aluminum foil, and I know people out there are already going, what's that for? We'll show you. Scissors, duct tape, and that's about it. One of the other containers that will work that you can use is a simple little thing of how many people have bees that they get all the time. This is a great way of doing it because we only need any plastic container can be used as long as you can see through it and you're able to cut a hole in the bottom. That is one of the big things about these is that you need to have drainage because we have the air circulation up here, and when you pour water in, it has to go through the soil and be able to come out. Otherwise, you're going to have this, it's going to be like compost tea because you got all the soil in there and it's going to stay in there. So we can get started by our milk jug. This is what you want it to look like. This is one that I've already planted up. As you can see, nothing's up, but you can see how the soil is settled. And this is a good indication when you're picking your soil, get good soil to use. So that gives you an idea of what it will look like. So to get started, the first thing we do, you get rid of the cap. You never need the cap. So we're going to take, and be careful, don't let the kids do this by themselves. I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to stick it in right here, right beside the handle, because our handle is going to become our hinge. And then before I do that, I always forget this part. We do a little circulation here. You want to be careful. And you just poke 4 holes in there. That way the water is going to drain out. Now we can go back to our little dissecting. So then we're going to just go all the way around. Not completely around though. Scissors will work it for this, but you got to make sure that you have some scissors that's got a very sharp point on them. This type of scissor, we've tried, these do not work because it's not sharp enough on the end. So you either get yourself some nice little scissors, takes a little bit longer, but with these, any container can be used that will hold 2 inches of soil. That's what's required. So even like this McDonald's cup, if I was to use this, I would first, sure I will. I've not tried this. Ooh, that's fun. So then I'm going to just stick some soil in there. to what I think is enough. And that's about 2 inches, and that's all it would take. Then what I would do with this one is I have my handy dandy water thing. You always get a tray or something because this water has to kind of set. You'll see that these ones are extremely wet. The peat pots themselves are real damp. The best way of doing it is watering these in. You make your newspaper pot, which we'll do, but you water it in and you let this soak for about an hour to 2 hours so that the soil, see how it drips out? So the soil moistens up, so then you can plant the seeds to go outside. So we have this one ready to go, and that's gonna drip. Now I'm gonna show you how to make a newspaper pot. A lot of books, garden books that are out there, they sell these fancy items that you can buy. They're wooden, and it will make a pot, a newspaper pot. They cost like $25, $26. So this one, it's a matter of an old soup can, a newspaper, and some Scotch tape. So I'll take the newspaper. This is actually the buyer's guide, just so you know. So it takes one of these. We'll fold it in half like this. It doesn't make any difference which side to use. So then we lay it down like this. I always use this side, the folded side, as my top of the pot, because if you use this side, it has a tendency, see how the paper kind of folds a little bit down? It will do that as you're trying to put the soil in or while they're trying to grow. So then I'm gonna put my soup can here. And I always tell the kids, then we just roll and roll and roll and roll and roll. You roll this down, you don't have to worry about it being neat because it will work. Look at, she's a good assistant. She's got the Scotch tape ready for me. So there we have our sides. So then we have to make a bottom to this pot. So I'm gonna take, and this is a technical term, you smush it. And you just fold it down like that. And we'll do another piece of tape right across there. And then that goes down. And then like that, you have a newspaper pot. So then what we would do is we would take this pot again and fill it full of the potting mix. And I want to talk a little bit about the potting mix, because when you go to buy potting mix to do this project, you want to buy good quality potting mix. Don't buy the cheap stuff. The cheap stuff, we tried it. This is what you get. You get all kinds of pieces of wood and things in it. It's coarser and it's just not as good quality. So you want to have good potting soil. So I would take this newspaper pot, I would water this in, and it's okay that it gets. See how the water will drain right out the bottom, but not to worry. That way, this does not need a hole. But if I was to do, do you want me to hold it up so they can see the drips? So then this one would have to set and wait for about an hour, because you can see how the water is only on the top. It hasn't soaked in at all. So we had to add some more, and this will settle right down. But back to the soil, you want to make sure that you use a good potting soil. And I'll move this milk jug right out of the way so you can see what I use. I go with the Miracle-Gro because it works the best. Now you want to make sure that when you buy the potting soil, it does not have the fertilizers in it, the plant foods in it, the moisture crystals, all of that. You want just plain potting soil. So, and they usually say right on there, the one that's got moisture crystals in it will have a blue label up here. So they always have a different color label, so you can go by that. But just look for plain potting mix.
Why do you not like the moisture crystals or fertilizer?
The moisture crystals it's gonna concentrate too much in one area, so it could damage the seeds. The fertilizers and stuff where these plants are, when you first start plants, you never give them fertilizer when you start seeds, because you have a chance of burning the seeds. So you always make sure you don't get one with a fertilizer, that way they come up natural. So then what we would do is I have these ones that I will go ahead and plant, because this one's soggy enough. So I'm gonna move this off to the side while that's soaking. And then we're just gonna take, these are all, this is butterfly flowers. And what I do is if I do a whole milk jug full of butterfly flowers, we have to do a label. Let me get my seeds spread out in there. And you don't have to be fussy on how you do the seeds, because they will grow, they will come up. As they come up, when you get a lot together, instead of trying to pull little ones out, get yourself the little handy dandy scissors again, and you can snip off the ones that you don't want.
How many would you recommend to have?
In something like this, because you can have more, because you can always take a plastic fork when they do come up and just kind of lightly go underneath the plants and kind of shake them up. And you always wait until they have their true leaves on them. You know, when seeds come up, they first have that little, I can't even think of the name of it, a little leaf that just a starter leaf. That's their food source for when they first start. And then they come up with another shoot and they have the true leaves. That's what you're gonna, yeah, they look different. They look like what it's gonna look like a tomato plant. It always looks like a tomato leaf. So, and when you're handling the little ones, when you're gonna plant them into the ground, you always pick them up. You take the fork in, kind of go like this, and pick them up by their true leaves. You never pinch the stem or anything, because you run a chance of killing that plant, because they're very weak. So, but if I was to do a whole jug of butterfly weeds, I would make labeling a whole lot easier, because we have to label these. What I would do is I take, this is a piece of regular duct tape. This is the sticky side. So I write today's date that I'm doing butterfly flowers, and I will stick it right on the inside of the milk carton, just like that, because you can still read it. This way you know you have a whole container of butterfly weeds. And this is the date I started them, because you always want to make sure that you have a date on there of when you started them, so you know when they come up. The other thing, as you're doing this, a good thing to do, we'll set that right over there, is get yourself a good garden journal, some type of a notebook to keep track of, because you'll find that you want to do more than one container. Trust me. So this way you can do more than one container. And then you can just put, if you want to, you could label these with a piece of duct tape inside that I have container A, B, and C. A might be all tomatoes, B might be all peppers, C might be, you know, the butterfly flowers. So that way you can just write down in your journal, okay, my A container contains all my butterfly flowers. So that's an easy way of doing it.
Could you put, instead of making little containers and putting them in here, could you just do all dirt?
Yep.
Without the containers?
Yes, you can. Good question, because yeah, you can do the same thing and fill this up, the 2 inches of soil, and then just plant the whole thing and do the same thing. One thing nice about these is when it comes time to plant them out in the garden, these are biodegradable. So you dig a hole. You don't have to dig these out at all. You know, if you were to do like cucumbers or peppers or something like that, you just put 2 seeds in there. And then you could take it when it gets taller. When it's time, when it's warm enough, then you can plant them out in the garden. Dig your hole, plant them in the hole, newspaper pot and all. You haven't disturbed the roots. So the plant's gonna be a lot hardier. One nice thing about doing sowing seeds in a snowbank is that most of the time when you buy a flat at the greenhouse, you know, you have to take it indoors at night and then outdoors for a little while during the daytime and acclimate it to outside. These are already acclimated because where they've grown outside, they're already ready for it. You got shorter stalks, they'll be sturdier stalks. They do 100% better. And you have a good thing, a good growing plant. Now, once you get them planted up, this is where the craft stick and the markers come in. Actually, a marker, and because there's two ways you can do it. You can either do a craft stick, and what I do is I will label it on both sides. Butterfly flower. And today's 27th, so 3/27. And I would probably turn it over and write it again down here. And I would have one set that would go above the soil and then one would go below the soil. So you label it this way. This craft stick is a little wet, so let me try putting it on this side. Butterfly flower. 3/27. And when you're doing your labels, do them in a permanent marker or a paint pen, because if you ever use red on these, red ink will fade in the sun, so will red paint, and it will disappear, and you will have a whole bunch of jugs that you have no clue what's in them.
Be a surprise.
So there I have this one marked here, and then when I flip it over, you'll see that this one's here. So one would go above ground, one would go below ground. And then that way you know that if this gets snapped off for some reason, then you're okay. The other option is you take little squares of aluminum foil, and then you take your craft stick like this, and you just wrap this around. And we have now made a fancy label that any ballpoint pen will put an indent in it. I'll go on this side, I guess, smooth it out. Butterfly flower. And see how it kind of engraves right on there. It's kind of just engraved. And that's just another way of doing another label. So you can go on with labeling all these. Now, I promised you that I would show you how to do one of these. So you would take normal toilet paper roll, paper towel roll. You go like this, you cut 4 slits in the bottom across from each other. Fold it down, fold it down, fold it down, fold it down, Scotch tape. These ones, when you use any type of cardboard, the newspaper pots, these little Dixie cups, the little Dixie cup, I would still poke a hole in. I would be a little bit leery about that. But these, once you put the water in them, it has a way out because it's going to soak through the cardboard.
Would this be considered biodegradable as well?
Yes, it is. So this is another one. If you only planted a couple seeds, you could take that out, dig your hole, put it right in the ground, plant it, and it will grow. So and this, if you're doing several different kinds of flowers and you only want to do 1 milk jug, that way you have a choice, because this will hold, I think, probably about 9 of these, where this would hold 4. And it doesn't mean you have to do all the same flowers in the same container. You can do, I have several different packets here. If I wanted to, I could do this one marigolds, this one zinnias, this one tomatoes, this one something else. It doesn't make any difference, because as long as I have the labels in there and I got the dates and when they come out and when they're there, then I can just grow them. As these grow, because they will start getting where the weather is right now, like yesterday we had a warmer day. Most people, if they got little plants up, you wanna wait until they have their true leaves again. But as the weather gets warmer during the daytime, you can go out and prop these all open and they get better air circulation and they get the moisture and stuff. Even if it's raining, you can take the top off. But at night, you gotta put it back on. And the best way to keep the tops on is you'll take little pieces of duct tape again. And then you just put little tabs right along the 3 open sides like this. And then when you wanna go out and open it, you just pull these probably up like this. Where I would do it. Or down, and just prop it open. Even if it meant putting like a stone or something in there, if it's not wanting to stay open enough. These are the same way, that if it got too warm, then you just take the lid off, then at night you just put it back on. This one would not need a hole in the top because of where the straw goes in. So the rain and stuff would go into that. So that's about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We talked about good soil. You always want to remember to use that. Do your labeling, make sure you keep records on it, water them in good, watch them. You want to go out and check them every so often because they can dry out. So you want to check them and make sure that they're doing okay. If they need a little bit of water, just take the top off, water them in a little bit, and then just keep them out there. Then when it's time to take them out to the garden, I would take this container and all out to the garden and plant it up. You know, not the milk jug, but I would take this out to where I'm gonna plant my plants as a carrying vessel, because if you start hauling those around and you're gonna have a mess.
So if you were to start these seeds in January, would you be concerned about watering the plants and it freezing?
No, you never have to worry about it. The gal that actually showed me how to do this showed us pictures of, she had done all of hers and she would do hundreds of milk jugs. And we got a really hard winter and got several feet of snow, so they couldn't even see the milk jugs. It won't hurt a thing because they're still getting the moisture through the top. It's not hurting anything. They're all insulated and they'll still grow.
So you wouldn't need to worry about watering them until they start growing.
Yeah. You know, you might want to wear the potting mix, because potting mix is really dry. It's very, very dry and light. You know, this is like powder. You know, that you want to make sure it doesn't dry out, because if it dries out, your seeds won't germinate either. They got to have the right stuff. They got to have the water. They got to have the light. They got to have the air to germinate. So you want them, and the right temperature. So one other thing that I'm going to tell you, that if you have pets, especially dogs, you want to make sure you put these in a very protected area, because my mom and I, several years ago, done a whole bunch of these because she wanted to do them. So we did them. We set them outside their house. Well, they had a dog.
No.
We ran to town, we come back home, and we had milk jugs all over the yard. We had newspaper pots scattered throughout. We had no idea what was what. So you want to make sure, excuse me, that you put them in a nice protected area. I generally go with, I do sowing our square foot gardens. I don't mess with regular gardens anymore. So I have square foot gardens. When I do my milk jugs, I take them right out and set them right in my square foot gardens. Because my husband was kind enough to build me square foot gardens above ground.
And is that what people would call a raised bed?
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me again. So other than that, I don't know if we have any questions out there. I'm hoping I helped everybody. One thing I can tell you is the different times of sowing seeds. Generally in February and March, January, February, and March are a good time for the perennials. Then annuals, you know, like your zinnias, your petunias, any of that would start in mid-March. Vegetables are in April and sunflowers are in May.
That you start
So,
them in the
Yeah,
container.
you can actually start these as long as you need a sweater at night that is cold enough that you have to wear like a sweatshirt or sweater or anything like that. Then you can still start seeds in a milk jug outside. You know, if you don't have room, and that's one of the benefits. If you don't have room inside, or you're like I am, I have too many projects going on in my south window that I'm working on other projects there that I don't have room to put all my plants on. So I opt to do this. And that helps. So because I can put them in the sun outside, I don't have to worry about them, you know, moving them around or anything. You can, if these start getting too warm where they're at, you can move those jugs around. So if it's getting too much sun, you can move it to a little bit shadier spot. But most of them like direct sunlight so that it's like a little greenhouse and it warms them up. So any other questions that we might have?
I have one question.
Yes.
What's your favorite seeds to
My
plant
favorite
in
seeds?
containers?
Man, she's put me on the spot. That's like asking somebody who their favorite child is, you know? I don't think I have one. I like to do a lot of my vegetables that way.
Okay.
And herbs. Herbs are good to do that way. So, but the flowers, this year I'm gonna start, I gotta get busy on that, getting some annuals and stuff planted for up at the library.
Okay.
Because if people don't know it, my husband and I, Lou, are the gardeners of the Sandusky Library here in town. So we're
Which
the
is
ones that
beautiful.
take care of it. Thank you.
Very beautiful. I admire it every year.
So we got a bunch of seeds given to us. So I'm gonna get a whole bunch of seeds started for that. So we're hoping that we can have those to plant. So I really don't have a favorite.
I thought that might be your answer.
Yeah. Now ask me what my worst ones are. And
What are
those
your
the,
worst ones?
the worst ones are the ones that are very invasive.
Okay.
You know, the ones where you have a little plant this year and by 3 years, you've got a plant this big. Those are the ones that it's, when they grow a little bit, they're okay. But when they grow massive, that's when they're really unruly. They gotta go. So, any other questions that you can think of? All righty, well, I thank you again. I will be back in May because I'm doing container gardening for you people. So I look forward to it because we're going to be doing, I believe it's going to be herbs and vegetables is what we're going to do.
Great.
Because we're going to have apparently a cook there that's going to do a cooking demonstration. So I have to give her the list of herbs that I'm going to plant. So
Very nice.
So
Well, we
have
look
that.
forward to that.
all righty, well, thank you for having me.
Well,
Okay.
thank you so much, Mary. It was a pleasure learning with you today.
I really enjoyed it. So I hope everybody enjoys doing it. So,
Thank you.
all righty.